The New York Mets are a broken baseball team right now, and they may have officially broken Jack McKessie. Welcome into another edition of the Bleav in Mets podcast. To be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm surprised that we are here doing this show. I texted Jack about an hour before we were set to record, and I'm like, do you still want to record? And he immediately answered, no, I don't still want to record. And then he was like, does 2 p.m. your time work? So he's a little broken. He's a little fragile. He's all over the place right now. And how could you not be, considering the way this team is playing right now? Another sweep. They've lost 6 in a row now. I ask this very cautiously. Jack, how are you, my friend?
Chris, there was a point last night, and this was Thursday night, so the series finale against the Braves, where Clay Holmes was walking everybody, and the Braves were scoring runs. And I considered texting you, should we just change our names, quit the podcast, and vanish? Go completely off the grid? Because last episode we talked about how the Mets got punched in the mouth in that series against the Rays, getting swept at home.
Mm-hmm.
A place they've been really good this year before last series. And we said this is the perfect opportunity for them to show us how good of a team they are. They're playing the Braves, going into the series, a team 8 games under 500, a team that had struggled, had, I think, recently lost to the Colorado Rockies. And instead of coming back with something to prove that they're a good team, that they deserve to be in first place in the National League East, they did everything to prove that should not be the case, that they are maybe fraudulent. I'm not going to say that yet. They're still 15 games over 500, but the vibes could not be worse right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of laughing and poking fun at the situation just to keep myself from slamming the table, because how could you not be completely frustrated by what you're watching every single night? And it's everything. The starting pitching isn't there right now. The bullpen, I mean, I'm not throwing Reed Garrett under the bus, but he gives up the lead the other night. They can't hit. They can't hit specifically with runners in scoring position. Their injuries are piling up all over the place. They have multiple spots in their lineup right now that are complete just holes. So everything is going wrong for this team right now, and it is coming at the absolute worst time. I don't think a 6-game losing streak would be accepted well by the fan base at any point of the season, but to do it at home against a team that you should have been able to beat, and then to go to this house of horrors. Atlanta, Georgia is it is a curse on the New York Mets franchise. They cannot, for whatever reason, they cannot play well there. And it happened again, night after night after night. Are you ready for this, Jack? I did the math yesterday. I looked. Mm-hmm. The New York Mets last year did not have a 6-game losing streak at all.
Yeah, that's right. Because to start the year, they were 0-5,
and they had
were
one
about to
other
be 0-6, and they came back to win that.
And they had one other 5-game losing streak later on in the first half of the year. They had never had a 6-game losing streak last year, and here we are talking about a team that's better.
Yeah, right. Like, when was last year's team 15 games over 500?
Right. Exactly. They never were.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start? You want to start with the pitching? A 6 ERA in their last 6 starts. Blade Tidwell starting tonight for the New York Mets. I mean, pitching is the start of this conversation, because it has been the backbone. It has been the strength of this team throughout the beginning of the year, and it is regressing to the mean. Griffin Canning is looking more like the Griffin Canning that the Mets were signing. Clay Holmes, his last couple starts, has been a struggle. 6 walks last night. Paul Blackburn does not look like a reliable member of a MLB starting rotation. Kodai Senga is hurt. Tyler McGill's on the 15-day IL. I mean, they just, everything is going wrong right now.
Can we also just, Kodai Senga being hurt is a lot more significant, I think, on the Mets rotation woes than Tyler McGill.
Are you ready for this?
Hurt.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
I would rather Tyler McGill right now than to watch Paul Blackburn and Griffin Canning.
I think that says a lot, because you were fully off the Tyler McGill hype train. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue against that right now, because when I sound so deflated, like I hear myself.
You are so defeated. You have the most defeatist attitude. I even got it in the text messages that you were sending last night during the game. Like I have never seen you in this place. So I'm trying to be more upbeat and try to be positive, even though there's nothing to be positive about, because you are so down in the dumps about this baseball team right now. I feel like this is an intervention for you to try to get you back being optimistic.
Everything feels so dark right now, because we knew, like, all year long, the offense has been weirdly the big struggle for this team. Like the weakest point has been the offense. And like you mentioned, specifically with runners in scoring position, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the pitching was such a strength that it allowed the Mets to build up this lead in the NL East, allowed them to keep winning games, kept them in, close scoring games. Everything felt like it was going right with the pitching lab, with guys like Canning, McGill early in the season, Clay Holmes for up until like these last 2 starts. Everything seemed to be clicking for the rotation, for the bullpen. And once things started to, as you put it, regress to the mean, once Griffin Canning started to look like the pitcher that gave up the most runs in the American League last year, and Clay Holmes starting to look like a reliever turned starter at age 32, and Kodai Senga gets hurt, and Tyler McGill gets hurt, and all of a sudden, David Peterson is the only pitcher in this rotation that I trust right now.
Hashtag
and then
race.
When, because of the lack of other rotation options later into the cycle, the bullpen starts to have a lot more pressure put on it. And then it starts to crack in the late game moments after David Peterson pitches. And then you lose games and the offense can't come back because they're not hitting. And so it's like an endless cycle where when we went from 3 to 4, like Griffin Canning was that 4th pitcher that we were trusting for a long time with Clay Holmes and Kodai Senga and David Peterson, members of the rotation that we could trust. And now we're down to 1, and the bullpen is cracking. And when that happens, it's like, I don't know how this Mets team can continue to succeed unless the offense figures it out as well.
And I think the important place to take this conversation now is, I'm not surprised that Griffin Canning is regressing to the mean a little bit. I'm not surprised that Paul Blackburn is regressing to the mean a little bit. I'm not surprised that in 2025, a Major League Baseball franchise is dealing with injuries to their starting pitching. I'm not surprised by any of that. I am surprised by the New York Mets offense not picking up the slack. I am surprised with a team that is the worst team in Major League Baseball when it comes to hitting with runners in scoring position, or the worst team in the National League. I don't know where they sit in all of baseball. That surprises me. It surprises me that Juan Soto is just stopping and starting. It surprises me that the Mets, if they don't have those 3 guys at the top of the lineup doing anything, it looks like a AAA lineup. Like, that stuff surprises me. Jeff McNeil is a big league player. Luis Torrens, Francisco Alvarez, whoever's starting at catcher is a big league player. This team has talent, and offensively, they are not picking up the slack. And let's face it, they have to. They have to turn a corner, and they have to score runs at a clip that picks up the slack for a rotation that, let's face it, is going through it. Now, again, I said this in some of the postcasts that I did, and I want to repeat it here for this audience because maybe there's not a ton of crossover. The New York Mets are not doomed. The New York Mets season is not over. The sky is not completely falling. They are having a rough patch. It should not be a surprise that their rough patch coincides with all these injuries happening and who they're playing on the calendar. Yep. They're going to come out of this. They're not going to lose every game the rest of the way. They are going to be back to being the team that they were at the start of the year. You're just left wondering, when is that going to happen? Because you're not seeing any signs of it. You're not seeing any signs. If the last game of the series, it was a close game, they lose 7-5, you can start to be like, okay, the offense scored 5 runs. It was a good day for Lindor. It was a good day by Alonso. And you can start to follow the breadcrumbs a little bit. You can find some silver linings. There are no silver linings in the Brave series.
Yeah.
You blew a game in game 1 when David Peterson was excellent once again. And I've got people upset at Carlos Mendoza because he let David Peterson start the 8th inning. That's not where your frustration needs to be guided. David Peterson, his last start, threw a complete game shutout and was dominant and almost as good as that complete game shutout over the first 7 innings. He absolutely deserved to start the 8th inning. And then Carlos went to the most trusted reliever not named Edwin Diaz out there in that bullpen in Reed Garrett. He just gave it up that night.
Especially with runners on.
Yeah. You hate to give that game away. And it was a sign of things to come with the way the rest of the series was going to go, because then you didn't have an answer for Chris Sale, and then you didn't have an answer for Spencer Strider, even though you hit the ball hard against him over the first couple of innings. But it set the stage for the rest of the weekend. This falls on the offense. And I know I have avoided going to this place, but I'm going to go there now. They need a change at the hitting coach. They need a change in the philosophical approach. You cannot be this talented and this bad with runners in scoring position and it not be something philosophically that you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, the easy counter argument to this is, well, Spencer Schwellenbach, Spencer Strider, and Chris Sale are 3 of the best pitchers in the National League. And fair. I wouldn't think that it was an issue that the offense struggled so much this weekend if it wasn't a continuation of a pattern rather than a, unstoppable force meets a movable object in the Mets suddenly are struggling against good pitching. Like, it wasn't that situation. The Mets have struggled all season, and we had hoped that with the series against the Rockies, where they were hitting, let's say, not as good pitching, that we thought the offense might be able to turn things around. No, instead, they go 1-for-6 in the first game of the series with runners in scoring position. 0-for-1. They only got one runner to second base in the second game of the series, and then 1-for-8 in the final game of the series. That was Ronnie Mauricio in the second inning. And so, like, this is not new. This is not a surprise or a result of the Braves' excellent pitching. That's definitely a part of it, but this is a trend. The Mets are not good at hitting with runners in scoring position. And I pulled up the stats, Chris, before we started the show. There is one team in Major League Baseball with a lower batting average than the New York Mets with runners in scoring position right now. The Mets are 15th in the National League, the last place in the National League. They're batting .216 with runners in scoring position. Look at the LA Dodgers and the Chicago Cubs, the two teams leading the other divisions in the National League right now. The Dodgers are hitting .299 with runners in scoring position. The Cubs are hitting .285 with runners in scoring position. The Mets are hitting .216. The only team worse than them is the Chicago White Sox, batting .211. And that's the story of the season right now.
It is the story of the season, and it is the story of this offense. I shared the numbers, forget if it was the last episode or the episode prior. Last 5 World Series champions, the worst that any of those 5 World Series champions finished the regular season hitting with runners in scoring position was 8th. The Mets are 29th. They are not going to win a championship until they turn this around. Now, do I think they've had some bad luck go their way? Yes. Do I think they are bound for some positive luck to go their way and to see that number bounce a little bit more towards league average? Yes. But it's not all bad luck. It is approach. It is the way they attack these at-bats, the way they attack these moments that also isn't very good. And right now, the story of this team is they cannot hit with runners in scoring position. Just boil it down to its basic understanding of this team right now. They can't hit with runners in scoring position. The last 2 days of the Braves series, Lindor, Soto, and Alonso went a combined 2-for-23. 2-for-23. You're not going to win any baseball games with your 1, 3, and 4 hitters, no matter what team you are, no matter who the players are, going a combined 2-for-23. It's not going to happen. And
even when Starling Marte is going 2-for-4 in the second game of the series, doesn't matter if no one's on base.
If no one's on base, if you can't come through with the big hit, and oh, by the way, on top of all of it, you're making mental miscues like Francisco Alvarez did in the first game of the series, like Luis Torrens did. Everybody wanted Luis Torrens in there. Francisco Alvarez can't be the starting catcher anymore. Can't be. He's making mental mistakes now. It's affecting his defense. Luis Torrens goes in there the next game and makes a play that you're taught to not make when you're 10 and you first get catcher's gear. You're taught to not use your mask to stop the ball. So if you want an understanding of how mental this is right now for the New York Mets, there's the play that sums it up. Luis Torrens doesn't make that play 2 months ago. This team, I have avoided saying it previously because I haven't seen the signs of it. I'm starting to see the signs. This is a team that is pressing right now. Mm-hmm. They are pressing in a big way. They are playing sloppy. And the Francisco Alvarez conversation is a fair one. I do think it is time to at least consider the idea of sending him down to the minors if you think that's going to help him get his confidence back. But I'm also not against the idea that they think that's going to make it worse. And so they just need to work with him at the big league level. But his approach isn't good. And that goes back to the hitting coach. That goes back to Eric Chavez. That is it. What they have done to his swing to stop making him pull happy and to have him go the other way. He's now overthinking it. He's back to trying to pull the ball too much. And his swing is all over the place. The team right now is just not cohesive. Yeah. They're just all over the place.
Yeah. And I think, so you mentioned the Alvarez and the Eric Chavez thing a couple of years ago. For listeners who are not aware, it came out in an article with someone, I think maybe in The Athletic, who talked to Eric Chavez, who said, yeah, we're with Alvarez right now. You know, he's a very pull happy power hitter. We're trying to make his spray chart a little bit more distributed across the whole breadth of the field. And let me tell you, that's not something that you really tend to want to do with power hitters. They are most successful when they're able to get a ball where they want it and are able to pull it over the fence. And we saw in the first half of 2023 with Francisco Alvarez hitting, 15-ish home runs. And then in the second half, like once that conversation happened, the home runs have completely almost dried up. He'll sometimes get a pitch in the zone and punish it like he did in Colorado, but 90% of the time now, he's not effective on offensively. And I think it even further speaks to the issues with the hitting coach, not just Alvarez, but look at Pete Alonso. And obviously he struggled in this series. Obviously he hasn't been incredible over the last couple weeks, but at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of June, he was the Mets' best hitter. He was the number one option for the offense. And it came out in another article that he had been using outside help to prepare for games.
Right.
And the fact that he was so successful using the outside help where the rest of the team has been struggling, presumably only relying on Eric Chavez and the hitting coaches, like that speaks more to the fact that the hitting coaches' approaches and what they're teaching these players to do with runners in scoring position or otherwise is not working right now. And there needs to be some kind of change. I don't think it is with the pitching. The pitching is going to be what it is. Jeremy Hefner is excellent. The pitching lab has been excellent. The regression to the mean is not surprising, but the hitting approach all season has been abysmal.
Well, and again, if we were just looking at the pure talent level of the pitching side and the hitting side has way more raw talent. The hitting side has way more talent that you expect to meet a certain level. The pitching, it has been smoke and mirrors, and we have said it as much, that it is just a credit to the lab and to Hefner and to Desi Drusel for the job that they have done getting the most out of these pitchers. And so it shouldn't be a surprise that there's a regression to the mean and that they're struggling a little bit. They also don't have Kodai Senga. They also don't have Sean Manaea. They also just are dealing with a rash of injuries right now that would knock down any pitching staff. Listen, I don't want to get into the pitching versus hitting. Everything is bad right now for the New York Mets. They're starting pitching over the last 6 games, the 6-game losing streak, an ERA over 6. Just not going to get it done, right? The hitting, 216 with runners in scoring position, that's not going to get it done. Somebody has to just erase it, flush it, move on, and start anew. And it needs to be one at bat, one pitch, one inning, one game at a time. You have a 6-game losing streak. You cannot get all 6 games back in one swing in one game. You win the first one, great. Then you move on to the second game. And again, if we're looking at the 2 groups right now, which group has more raw talent to get themselves out of this mess? You would look to the hitting more than you would the pitching right now in its current state.
Yeah.
Frankie Montas, Carlos Mendoza's meeting with the media right as we were recording this pod. Frankie Montas is most likely going to start on Tuesday for the Mets, so they're going to activate him over the weekend. They're going to have to make a roster move in order to do so. So Frankie Montas will most likely make his Mets debut on Tuesday against the Braves. And Mark Vientos hit a bases-clearing double in his rehab game down in the minor leagues, and he's going to play throughout the weekend, and the Mets are not ruling out him returning Monday for the start of the Braves series. And if Mark can be second half of last year Mark, if Mark can be postseason Mark, if that Mark Vientos could come back, it would be very much appreciated for this team right now. Anything else you want to talk about here about the series that was? I mean, it is just a continuation of just some of the same stuff that we've seen over the last 6 games in general. I hate to just boil it down to like the hitting just has to be better, but it just has to be better. That's the group that's going to get them out of this.
Yeah. I don't really have anything to add. The pitching is what it is, and they're not going to be able to make any huge moves. Obviously, Manaea coming back is going to be big, provided that he pitches like second half Sean Manaea and early postseason Sean Manaea. Frankie Montas, we'll have to see. I guess the jury's still out based on only his rehab starts. It hasn't been great, but like we said, we don't know how much of that is just kind of his extended spring training almost, so to speak.
It is concerning the more starts that he racks up and it not turning a corner.
Right.
But yeah,
he also pitched at the major league level yet.
He draws a terrible matchup. He goes up against Chris Sale on Tuesday.
Right. So it's
that's great.
I don't know. It just, the hitting just has to be better. And you got a tough situation going into tonight with the starting pitching matchup. Bleav Tidwell coming back up for his second spot start for the Mets, and then Zach Wheeler.
Bleav Tidwell against Zach Wheeler tonight. It's Griffin Canning on Saturday, and then David Peterson to close up this series on Sunday. Can't wait to see another David Peterson start. I look forward to them every single time because he's our guy right now. He's hashtag our ace until Sean Manaea returns. I know there's a lot of frustration that this is not Nolan McLean tonight, and that instead it's Bleav Tidwell. One, there's a 40-man move that you have to make in order to get McLean on there, and you have only one free 40-man spot right now that Frankie Montas is going to take once he comes back from this injury. If I remember correctly, Frankie was placed on the 60-day IL. So he gets removed from the 40-man. Yeah, he's on the 60-day IL, so they're going to have to put him back on the 40-man, which will take up that last spot. And I don't think the Mets are in a position right now where they want to call up Nolan McLean and have him just make one start and then send him back down. I think if they call him up, they want him to be a regular contributor to this team, whether it's as a rotation guy, whether it's as what David Stearns did in his first couple of years there in Milwaukee, where he used his top prospects as like multi-inning relievers every couple of days. I just think until they have that role for him that they can turn to, they're just going to continue to let him get those starts down in the minors. And for Tidwell, the stuff's good. That start that he made earlier this season against the Cardinals when he made his debut was just a command thing. He's got great stuff. He's got great bite on his breaking pitches. It's just about locating the fastball and then working from there. He was missing up a ton with that fastball, so looking forward to seeing if he has made the adjustments since that start. And now that he won't have the nerves of it being his first big league start, we'll see. Again, tough lineup, tough team, tough environment in Philly. I get it. It's not a great draw for Bleav Tidwell, but I still think there's potential in this kid, and I can't wait to see what the adjustments were here. Listen, it's frustrating. I think I speak for Jack when I say that we're just as frustrated as all of you, and we're searching for answers, and we're searching for this team to be able to turn it around. But again, I keep going back to this message. They are going to get out of this at some point. It's just a question of when. And they have too much talent in this room for it not to be at some point over this weekend. Like, there's too much talent hitting for them not to have one big day to snap out of it. I mean, the Yankees across town, they went through something very similar. They went 3 straight games with not being able to score, and they snapped out of it, and they are back in the win column, and their offense is humming again. So this stuff happens. It just hasn't happened at this level for the Mets since 2023. And you hope that the makeup of this room will allow them to, just winning tonight would just cure everything going into the weekend. If you lose tonight, it can spiral quickly. It can snowball. Win tonight, and man, you can almost forget about the 6 games if you win tonight and you get off to a good start against Philly in Philly.
Yeah, it would be really nice. And I think it's also easy to get caught up in what's going on in the moment, right? The Phillies are hot right now. They just had 2 series against the Jays and the Marlins where they won, I think, all 6 games. And with that and the Mets getting swept in their last 2 series, it has narrowed the division lead to 0. These 2 teams are tied for first in the NL East right now going into tonight's game. And that is something that can be anxiety inducing and cause some stress for fans. And I'm sure the players are thinking about it. But at the end of the day, we're still not halfway into the season. There is so much baseball left to be played, and things are going to shake out the way that they're going to shake out. And look, maybe they lose tonight. Maybe they lose the series and the division lead goes back to the Phillies, but there's plenty of time for the Mets to catch back up. We saw last year how things were able to flip around down the back half of the season. And again, we're not even halfway there. We're not even to the trade deadline. This roster is going to look different. The players are going to be playing different in September than they are right now. So don't get too hung up on these results, even though it is a very, very frustrating stretch.
I'll put it in this context, and I'll leave this as my final thought. If before the season I told you the Mets would get to June 20th and start a 3-game series in Philadelphia, 45-30, 15 games above 500, and leading the NL East, you would have signed up for it.
Absolutely.
You would have signed up for it, and you wouldn't have cared how they got here. And that's exactly the position they find themselves in. So, again, just problems, yes. Worries, yes. Concerns, absolutely. No doubt about it. I'm not trying to sugarcoat or find a silver lining, but this is what we would have signed up for before the season. We would have signed up for this series in this spot against this team with this record. So just have to hope that they can find a way to win some games over the weekend, because this, if not, it will be 3 straight podcast episodes without us talking about a victory.
Yeah.
That's saying something. Like 3 straight podcast episodes without discussing a victory. Not going to happen. I predict a big weekend for the Mets. That's going to do it for us here on the Bleav in Mets podcast. You want to watch the show, you want to see Jack's descent into madness, you can catch it over on our YouTube channel. Just search Jack McKessy, McKessy, over there on YouTube. And for those of you listening in the audio, the podcast feed, rate, review, subscribe. We would greatly appreciate that. We're back to wrap up this Philadelphia series when it gets done over the weekend. And hopefully there are some wins in store for the New York Mets. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.